Welcome to another tech video. Today we're going to be talking about a build that I've been planning on for about 2 years and never got around to doing it, and also because of the cost of the graphics cards it wasn't really justifiable on the spend. Okay, so let's talk about the parts that we've gone for. So we're going to be assembling it in the Lian Li Q58 mini ITX case in white. So this was, I think it was about £145, and that was from Water Cooling UK. The next thing in the device is going to be this motherboard. So this is the Aorus Pro AX mini ITX Ryzen 5000 B550 chipset motherboard. So that's a super motherboard. Processor wise, we've gone for an AMD Ryzen 9 5900X, which is a 12 core 24 thread PCIe 4 processor. Then for the memory, we've gone for the Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro SL in white. This is a 32 gig kit running at 3600 megahertz. And then for our storage, we've gone for a WD black. So this is an NVMe 4 drive, 1 terabyte. So that is going to be holding all of the OS and a variety of other bits and pieces. Keeping it cool is the Kraken X53. So this is a 240mm radiator. This is in white, comes with LED fans and a nice programmable block on the CPU cooler. And then to drive the screen, so we're going to be using this on the TV in the lounge. So to drive the screen, we've gone for a ROG Strix gaming graphics card. This is a 3080 in white. Prices of these have really come down, which is why we finally were able to afford to do it. And then powering the whole lot, we've gone for an SFX SX750 power supply from Silverstone, which should be more than inadequate to power everything. So without further ado, let's start the prep work. As with all good things, we've got to start somewhere, so we're going to start with the main board. Now you're all probably going to say, why haven't you got a rubber mat down? But this is quite adequate for what we're going to be doing. Oh, that's heavy. Okay, and then in here, what have we got? We've got SATA connections. We've got a Wi-Fi antenna. We've got another little connector, looks like for a fan. Nice little sticky logo, installation guide, and our M.2 drive mounting kit. You get a CD. Who uses a CD nowadays? Okay, so let's have a look at this this board. Wow, that's very impressive. The weight of it is quite substantial for a tiny little board. So it looks like M.2 slot is under here. That looks like there's an additional cooler going around there. So that's impressive. 2 RAM slots, USB 3.2. Looks like we're going to have to probably change that bracket for our cooling. And then on the back of it, we've got the plate that's already mounted. We've got various connectivity, HDMI, 2 HDMI outs, 1 DisplayPort out, 3 USB 3.2, BIOS flashback, and USB Type-C 3.2. So these are all 10 gigabit signaling rate. USB 3.2 connector there, and a 2.5 gig network interface, microphone line out, line in, and our Wi-Fi connector, aerial connector points. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to stick the CPU in. So let's get that out of the box. Lots of packaging for nothing in there. I guess that's for the cooler that some ships with some of them. 5900X. So The reason we're building this out of the case is because it's going to be an absolute nightmare to get it in there. So we want to make sure that it all works before we put it in there. Okay, and our little dot mark. So we've got a little arrow in the top right hand corner that corresponds with the dot on the chip there. So that is the way that it goes in. Just till it drops in, give it a little wiggle, and then that gets locked in place like that. Next thing is we're going to stick our M.2 drive in, and with our M.2 drive we want to remove these two screws here, which needless to say is very tight, and this is a solid block. Okay, now we've got our M.2 heatsink under here, so we're going to make sure that that goes back on. There we go. And we've got our tape along the bottom here that needs to be removed. So to get this in, let's just go ahead and fit that like that. So that is all in the correct place, so we don't need that additional screw, but what we do need is we're going to do a peel on that. That's going to go back in there and sit on top of the M.2 drive. And that screws back in place, and then we take our block that sits back on top of everything, providing additional cooling. I can just find where it actually lines up. There we go. Okay, so that's our CPU and our M.2 drive put in. Now we've got to peel all the protective film off the rest of the motherboard. And round this side as well. We're going to put that to one side, and we're now going to check out the cooler to make sure that that's all going to work okay. Okay, so we've got our pump, which is absolutely enormous. So the first thing that we need to do on this main board is we want to remove these brackets. Okay. Okay, so as you can see on these backplate bolts, or there's a bracket that sits underneath the back, so we leave that in place, and then these standoffs have got a threaded screw in the center of them, so that they go over the top. Just do it up finger tight like that. Okay, so now we've got our brackets installed. These are the bolts we're going to be using to hold the cooler down on top of it. So let's have a look to see the best position. So we've got our connectors on this side, so probably it would be beneficial to be able to mount it have a look, see if we can get it mounted this way. Okay, no, so 1, 2, so that's going to interfere with the RAM. So what about this way, because we're going to be mounting the radiator on the top. Okay, so we are going to have to change the orientation of the bracket. We're going to have to change to an AM4 bracket. Okay, so now we've got the bracket reorientated. Let's see if that's going to fit for us, which it is still pretty close to the RAM. So I think I'm going to go round the other way. Right, so now we've got all that done, the next thing I want to do is to make sure that the system's going to boot. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to install the cooler. So that means the cables are coming out the bottom, but they can route round to the top, and that gives us sufficient room for our memory. So that is a much better way of doing it. So let's get that screwed down. Now we move on to our memory. Okay. That's it. So we've got everything connected now. Next thing I want to do is we're going to need some power and the GPU. So it's a little bit precarious, but it's just going to be for about a minute while we test it to make sure that it powers on. So everything's connected. It's all a bit of a mess at the moment, but that's absolutely fine while we're testing. So we've got our motherboard connections in, we've got the pump sitting on there, we've got our 3080 connected with our supplementary power, we've got everything switched on, and now we're going to see we've got lights on there. Nothing up there. Let's go ahead and see if we can get that switched on. There we go. Moment of truth. Okay. We've got no error codes or LED codes anywhere. Got a nice sheen coming out from under there, LEDs. Oh, there we go. We've got a post. Fantastic. Okay, let's get that switched off. Awesome. Right, so now we know the system works. Now comes the next bit where we've got to try and get it all in the case. So let's crack on and then we can get it into the case. So join us for part 2 where we get all the bits and pieces added into the case. If you found that video useful so far, give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Just want to say thanks for watching and join us for part 2 in a day or so.